Hello everyone, and welcome to Jumperman Tech, where we specialize in HVAC but do everything DIY. And today we're going to do an overview of an HVAC system. Thank you to everyone tuning into Jumperman Tech, and we're going to begin today's lesson by taking off a few covers and going over the components and controls. But to begin things, we're going to shut off the thermostat and then kill the disconnect. When this lever is in the down position, we are in the off position. When the lever is up, you are in the on position. And this here is called a disconnect. This is what feeds power to our unit. This right here is a BX cable, and that is what's carrying line voltage to the unit. Here's our thermostat, and as you can see, our system is in the off position. So now that the thermostat is good, we're going to head over to the unit and kill the disconnect. Now we can kill our disconnect. We are now in the off position because the lever is down. Just to give you guys an idea of what it looks in here. So since I have 3 wires coming in and 3 wires coming out, I know this system is a 3-phase system. If we look here on these little bars, once we move the lever, we actually adjust this bar and it gets in contact with the 3 wires and it sends line voltage coming in, which is up top, because we can trace these wires and that feeds into the unit. So power comes in from the top. We got 3 wires, 120 volts in each leg to ground, and that sends our 3-phase here to our unit. So we just took off the front access panel for the bottom half of this unit. It's actually in 2 sections, and this right here, since we can see our compressors, we know this part of the section of this unit is our condensing unit. Condensing unit is our condenser coil with our compressor and the cooling mechanism for the condenser. As you can see, the system has a fan and there's no water pipes leading into it, so this is an air-cooled package unit and this is an air-cooled condenser. I'm just going to take off a few more panels so you guys can get a better look at the system and really know what's in here. So I just climbed up around here. Now this is the other side of our condensing unit, and that's the bottom half. Air is being pulled in through here. As you see, this is ducted to the outside. The top half is actually our evaporator section, our air handler. So let's get all these covers off so I can explain everything. Here is our evaporator section. And you know which one is your evaporator section because you can follow the drain line. Just look for a drain line. Wherever that drain line is coming from, that's going to be your evaporator section. So this up here is our evaporator coil and a few other components, but let's continue taking off the covers so I can give you guys a better overview. Bottom section, our condensing unit. And our upper section is our blower section, our air handler. Right here is our control panel. I think this just comes down. Little thing here. Here we have our control panel. And here's our diagram. This is a wiring diagram. All right, so here's our unit. And we're gonna start with going over the 4 major components. Your major components, which every single system has, is a compressor. And in this case, we have 2 of them, compressor 1 and compressor 2. So we have a compressor in every system. We have a condenser in every system. We have an evaporator in every system, and we have expansion valves. So here are our 2 compressors. We already got that down packed. Next, right here, we can see that we have a motor. And this is a fan motor, because that is the application. As you can see, we have the pulley set up with the belt. And when this motor energizes, it spins this here. It spins this blade. It's actually a double blower. There's 2 of these. And that's how we move air and reject heat. If you look inside here, the type of blade this is called a squirrel cage. Looks like a hamster's cage or something, you know, that they would run around through. So since we know our compressors are here, and this is our condensing unit, this coil is our condenser. This is our condenser coil. And what is a condenser coil, and what's the difference between an evaporator coil? There is none. It's just a copper coil with aluminum fins. And it's basically a heat exchanger. It's just used in different parts of the circuit. So this is our condenser coil. Here's our condenser fan motor. Here's our pulley, fan belt. Here's our squirrel cage. That's a type of blade that's there. All right. And next, let's see, if you look on the pipes here, you can see some with some black wires, some with some red wires. So let's identify that. So here's a compressor. The larger pipe is going to be your suction line, which is your low side. The other pipe is going to be a smaller pipe, and it's going to be your discharge, and that's your high side. So let's follow the discharge pipe. Here we have 1 pressure control, and it's red, okay, 2 wires. We follow this discharge line, we have another control, and it's 2 wires. So what does that tell me? Since I know it's the discharge side, and the discharge side is on the high side, this is our high pressure control, okay? Next, we follow the larger pipe, which is the suction line. And what do we have here? We have more pressure controls. 1 on this compressor and 1 on this one. And since I know the suction line is on the low side of the system, this is our low pressure control. If the system runs on low pressure, then this circuit will open and shut down your compressor. If your system is running on high pressure, once it reaches a predetermined value, depending on the refrigerant in the system, it's gonna open the circuit and shut off your compressors to protect them. So these are safety controls. Okay, if we follow along over here, the discharge line, if you follow it, it goes in to the condenser, and coming out of the condenser, it's gonna be your liquid line. Your liquid line is going to have multiple components in it. You're going to find things like this right here. This is your filter dryer. Next, on the same line, right here, this is your sight glass. You can physically see if the refrigerant is being fully condensed. In this circuit, since we have 2 compressors, we have 2 filter dryers and 2 sight glasses. And that's your liquid line, and that makes its way up to your expansion valve, which then ends up leading into your evaporator. So let's make our way up there. All right, so these are our filter dryers, and we know that's always going to be on our liquid line. Following the circuit, comes up, up, 1 here and 1 here, and you can see these components right here. We have 2 expansion valves. Okay, you can see that off the head there's like a little bulb that comes out and it gets strapped to your suction line, and that is called a feeler bulb, and this is a thermostatic expansion valve. Thermostatic or thermal expansion valve, people really have different names for it. Usually it's two pipes. You know, you got your liquid line coming in, then it comes out through here, and this is actually a distributor, and it distributes the refrigerant into your evaporator coil. But if we follow, we actually have a third line here, and what that is an equalizer, and it helps balance the system, and that also gets tied in to your suction line. So we made our way up, we went through the expansion valve, and now we're entering our evaporator coil. So this here is our air handler, right? We have another motor up here, and that's going to be your evaporator fan motor, and this is your, of course, evaporator coil. With the condenser, we are rejecting heat. With the evaporator, we are absorbing heat. Also, follow the air filters. The air filters are always going to be for your evaporator coil. So here are your air filters. You can see they're nice and clean. And what do we have on the other side? Your evaporator coil. So whenever you see air filters, you know that's your evaporator coil. Here we have a drain, so whenever you see a pipe coming out that's, you know, maybe copper or PVC like this style, you're gonna know that's coming out of your evaporator. So right off the bat, without even opening this unit, I know that this is the evaporator section. Also, I can see this duct is leading outside, and that's how I know that is my condensing unit. Let's make our way around to the other side of the evaporator section. All right, gonna make our way up. So this is the other side of the evaporator coil. As you can see, we have another motor here with another fan belt and pulley type system with a squirrel cage type blower. That is our blower wheel. So when the motor spins, it's gonna move this belt, and with this pulley system, we can spin this section here and move air. And this is gonna be our supply air, right? It comes through the duct. And as it moves across the space, we have some registers, some grills, and that's gonna give us our supply air, our cooling. And we just described the cooling in this system. Let's go over some of the controls. All right, here is our control panel. And for the most part, everything is mechanical as far as controls here. So let's see what's going on. So right here, we have a terminal block. As you can see, it's labeled with things such as C, Y1, Y2, G. So we know that's our terminal block for our thermostat. These little wires here coming in, that's our thermostat wiring, and that comes, of course, from the thermostat. And that's going to be speaking with our control circuit here. As you can see here, we have a transformer, and let's see, our secondary is 24 volts. So our control circuit is 24 volts, and our line voltage circuit is 208 volts, 3-phase. So next, if we follow here, let's see, for R, it comes in and out of a fuse. So that's still our low voltage circuit. So that's little protection for our 24 volt circuit, okay? Our 24 volt circuit actually gets fed from this transformer. So we have 208 coming in, and we have 224 volts coming out, feeding our control circuit. If we follow these wires, here's another fuse block with 2 fuses, except this is protecting our line voltage. So we have 120 volts in each leg to ground, and these fuses protect that circuit. So from there, we'd feed power to one side of this contactor, which is gonna be our line side, and at the same time, we're gonna feed the other side of this contactor. So these 2 contactors are for our compressors. Then these 2 right here are actually motor starters, which the only difference is it's basically a contactor with a set of overload contacts with extra safety. Okay, so these 2 are basically our starting component for our, one is for your evaporator fan, the other one is for your condenser fan. And then this contactor is for one compressor, and then this contactor is for the next one. These two components here, since we have two compressors, this is like some type of phase monitor, and it says it actually provides diagnostics and protection for 3-phase Copeland skull compressors. So it's a, you know, a safety thing. There's some LED lights here, you know, and depending on the flash codes, it symbols a different issue. So let's say it flashes twice, system pressure tripped. 3 flashes would be short cycling, 4 locked rotor, and etc. So that's pretty cool. Kind of helps you to troubleshoot, but sometimes this thing itself is the problem. Okay. So over here, just another fuse block. This wire here just goes straight to metal. That is your ground. Usually your ground is always a green wire, but here it's white. It really doesn't matter. Just follow it and see what it is. And you know, that's pretty much it for this control circuit. This is what we described now was our cooling unit. Because although this is a package unit, what they did here is to get heating, it's actually a separate type of system that they actually mounted in the duct. So let me set up my ladder so I can show you guys how this place actually gets heat. And this is our heating setup. So this unit is air cooled. It's a package unit and it uses refrigerant, and the type is refrigerant 410A. So here, this is how they get their heating. And what you see is actually, this is actually mounted and set up in the ductwork. So what this is a inline duct furnace. This is a furnace. So let's see, what kind of fuel do we use? Well, we can see here, this is actually black pipe, and this is a gas line. This is natural gas. And where does this line lead into? Right here. This is our gas valve. Okay. Here's a little control panel. The cover's already off. So what do we have here? This control here is your ignition control. It's going to be the brains of your operation. We have a control here, and I can see that I can adjust from 120 to 240 seconds to 30 to 60. So this is actually like a dual relay, but it's a time delay to either keep it on or off for a certain amount of time, whether you energize or de-energize the circuit. Okay. Next, this round control. This is our flow switch. This is, you can see it's connected with this little tubing, and it reads air pressure. This is going to prove that our inducer motor is on and it's venting out all the carbon monoxide. So then we have 2 wires here leading into this plate, and you don't see anything there, but it's actually a control that sits inside of this duct, and it basically measures temperature. It's called a limit control, limit switch. So if it reaches too high of a temperature, the circuit's going to open and shut you down basically to protect you. Coming out the ignition control is this thick orange wire. All right, that's going to be your spark. All right. Then you have another one, which is like a braided wire. And what's that right there? S1, that's going to be your flame sensor. And that sits inside of the burner section. So let's get in there. Whoops. So here's our burners. We have a whole row of them. Here's our sparker, and here is our sensor. And so once it calls for heat, it's going to open up this gas valve. It's going to go through a number of safeties. I'm not going to go over the sequence of operation now, as I will do that in a different video. Here I just want to go over the components. So it's going to send the gas through, and through this nozzle it's going to shoot the gas through, and with this switch we're going to spark it on, and then we're going to have a flame. We got fire and we got heat. We also have a inducer fan motor, and what this does is exhaust all the carbon monoxide. And if we follow up there, you see this duct leads outside. That's the exhaust, where it's going to exhaust all the carbon monoxide. And we have a motor there. Some people call it a vent motor, but it's really an inducer motor. If we follow here, we could actually see like a box mounted on the duct, and that's actually a smoke detector. So if there's a smoke in the duct, it's going to shut down the system, close the gas valve, and so forth. So this is how we get our heating, and this is a inline duct furnace. And this is how we get our cooling, and this is a packaged AC unit. One thing to note with these condensers is that it's always the side exposed to the outside air that gets dirty. So what happened is, I started this system, I think it was running on super high pressure, and there was no access. I was not able to see through here, but I knew it was dirty. So I cut in this access panel and cleaned the coil, and it looks great. I cut one on both sides so we can acid wash it, and it really worked out. Here in this duct, you can see it's like a stretchy material. It's called a canvas. And whenever you see stuff like that, you can, stick your thermometer through it to get a temperature reading. And the same thing for your supply. You can see right here, this is our supply. And there's a canvas here, so once you start the unit, you can just stick a thermometer in through there and you can get your temperature reading. So that was basically your quick overview of this system. And if anybody found this video interesting or helpful, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you all next time.